Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday. Let's see if I can share this. How can I share it, guys? Let me go on another page. Apologize for the little tardiness. I was getting ready. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if I'm loud and clear. I know it's early Saturday morning. I know people are, let's see if I started watching here, sleeping. I know it's raining here, it's cold here, but nonetheless, I'm here, you're here, and I'm excited about you being here on this morning with us. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday to you. Happy Saturday to you. I'm playing some worship instrumental music in the background. I do that often when I'm teaching, when I am reading, when I'm studying, when I'm doing homework. That's kind of like my thing. It, brings, it soothes me. It creates a space for peace and for just God's presence to just rest where I am. So that's what I am playing this morning. Let me know who's on this morning. Let me know where you are in the world. Are you in Charleston, South Carolina? Are you in Washington, D.C., Virginia? Where are you in the world? Let me know that. I'm just sharing this. These are the few groups here that I have. Share in a group. Watch together. I'm loving these new features on Facebook, you guys. I know I wasn't able to get on yesterday via live. So I'm on my computer this morning. So come on in, come on in, come on in. Let me know where you're from. Let me know if you've been on the last 4 days. Good morning, Sophia. I think, was it Tiffany that sent me a message? Tiffany. I'll just tag a few folks here that I feel like would benefit from being on here and that wants to support. Good morning, Shay. Listen, you guys, if you know anyone that needs to be a part of this conversation on this morning, please go ahead and share this with them. I do ask you to do that. Just a disclaimer, these lives, these conversations are not encouragement or strategies for you to get divorced, to be divorced. These are strategies to bring awareness to what's happening in marriage, and particularly when it comes to emotional abuse and emotional destructive behavior that's happening. And if you just hang around for a little while, you will be able to get the strategies and tools that I'm going to give you to stay well or to make whatever decision that God is calling you to make. For that's not up to me. That is not the lane that I am in. So just stick around for a little while and you'll definitely get what you need. I believe it to be so. Good morning, Deborah from Florida. Sophia, you're in North Carolina, right? Thank you for tagging someone. Thank you guys for tagging, sharing, and inviting. Let me know if the music is in the way of what we're a conversation. I can turn it down a little bit, but I do like the soothing of it. So let me know if it's too much or if it's just perfect, and then we'll get right into the conversation. And I have my notepad, guys, so I hope you have yours too. If you don't, I'll give you a minute to do that. I don't like to do too much stalling, so I'm going to get right into it, but I'm just giving folks just a few to get on here and to share on your page, share in your communities. If that's what you desire to do, please do that. And those that don't know me, I'm Terrell Ravenel. I'm the life and marriage transformation scientist. And basically what that means is that I infuse the word of God with science and research in order to help wives to win in their marriage and women to win at life in general. I am considered a transformer because I'm known for helping women to transform their lives. That's their faith, fitness, finances, and family, so that they can experience fulfillment in their life while here on earth, not when they get to heaven. So yeah, let's see. And I have a pretty good track record. God would say so. Okay. All right. Thank you all for sharing. Hey to my replay viewers. I appreciate you for coming on. I appreciate you watching on this morning. We're going to get right into it. So listen, guys, today we're talking about let me respond to this person right quick. Hold on. Beautiful. Okay. I think this is her. Today we're talking about how to stay well. Let's say who to stay well. You guys know what I meant. So how to stay well, I'll change that after I'm done. How to stay well if leaving is not an option. So what we're talking about this morning, the last few days, I've been talking about destructive marriages. I've been talking about how to identify a destructive marriage. I've been talking about the difference between a destructive marriage and a disappointing marriage, because some people are just in a disappointing marriage, and a disappointing marriage may mean that your spouse is not living up to your expectations. They may not take out the trash when you want them to. They may be more reserved than you would like. They're not as open and spontaneous as you. You guys may not have the same commonality or interests. You feel yourself kind of drifting away because you can't have a conversation because they rather not talk about certain things. That right there can become emotionally abusive or destructive, especially if they are deliberately ignoring you. But when you talk about disappointing, it's like, okay, when I'm disappointed because my husband doesn't help me cook, or disappointed because he doesn't like ice skating and I like ice skating. We don't have the same goals, or we don't like the same things. A destructive marriage is more so when there is some form of abuse that's involved, when your character is being demolished, when you're being abused verbally, when your spouse makes you feel worthless, helpless, hopeless, like they take the sides of the children or even their parents over you. They may make you look like a fool in front of others. They tease you. They're very sarcastic when speaking to you. They don't have your best interests at heart. So it's a difference between a disappointing and a destructive marriage. And just what you need to keep in mind is a destructive marriage is always some form of abuse, some form of belittling, humiliating you, being sarcastic as it relates to you, not sharing with you. That's sharing finances. If you're in a scenario where you don't know what's going on with the money, you don't know how much money your spouse is making, they're not disclosing that information to you. You find yourself, strapping for cash, or trying to make it. They're not giving you any money or any allowance. That's considered a form of emotional abuse. Them withholding sex from you, withholding conversation from you. That's a form of abuse, an emotional destructive marriage. So we have to be able to identify what's what. Now, what we're not doing here is saying, oh, you're an emotionally destructive or abusive marriage, you need to pack your stuff up and leave. That's not what we're saying here. However, what we are saying here is that you need to make sure that you're safe, and you need to make sure that your children are safe. I've had real life conversations with several women that are in this place, and they don't know what to do. I've had several women that are still fighting for their marriage. And here's one thing what I will say. I will always tell you to fight. And I will tell you to make sure you're safe. So I will always tell you to fight, and I will always tell you to make sure you're safe. And when I talk about fighting for your marriage, fighting, hey Irish, hey Kay, Elizabeth, hey Ramona, hey Geneva, fighting for your marriage is not you nagging him, is not you complaining, is not you saying don't leave and I love you. That's not what I'm talking about when I say fighting. Fighting for your marriage is fighting through prayer, fighting through fasting, fighting through your relationship, your communion with God, and fighting through ministering to your husband. I don't know if you guys were on a live at this some time ago, but I talked about when you're in a position and your husband is refusing to love you as Christ loved the church and gave his life for her, and as he loves his own self, if he's refusing to love you and demonstrate that love to you, at some point you have to make up in your mind and you have to accept the fact and the reality that he is not capable at this moment of loving you and demonstrating love toward you, nor is he willing to do that. And you have to make up in your mind that you are going to minister to your husband. Now, when I talk about ministering to your husband, and you have to realize that your marriage is a ministry. I know we have used that several times before, sometimes out of context, but when I'm talking about, when I say your marriage is a ministry, that means that you are in that place of submission and servanthood, but you're also in that place of ministering to him. And that's not necessarily beating him over the head with the Bible, quoting scriptures around the house. That simply means that you're operating in the will and the word of God. You're being kind, you're being gentle, you're being faithfulness. However, you're not being a doormat. You're not allowing someone just to abuse you because you're being kind and gentle. There's a difference between being kind and gentle and loving and someone using you as a human form of a punching bag. And I'm not talking about physical punching. I'm talking about punching with their words, punching with their behavior, and making you feel small and insignificant because you're a Christian. That's not what God wants. God hates divorce, yes, and God hates how husbands mistreat their wives and how wives mistreat their husbands. This conversation is for both husbands and wives because I do understand, and God just reminded me this morning that men are going through this as well. They have wives that are emotionally abusive and verbally abusive, and many people don't look at it that way because we expect for men to be strong. Oh, you're strong, or you're a man. Oh, get over it. No, abuse is abuse, regardless of who it's happening to and who it's coming from. So we have to first understand that. So when I'm saying that, you have to realize that your marriage is a ministry and you have to minister to your husband. You have to minister to your wife. You're ministering to the word of God. So that does not mean that you're telling them, don't leave me and I can't live without you. No, you're praying. You're fasting. You're going to the throne of grace every single day. And listen, catch this. And fasting and praying is not necessarily saying, Lord, save my marriage. It's Lord, save my spouse, literally. Lord, transform their heart. Don't transform their heart for me. Transform their heart for you so that they can see you one day, so that they are saved and set free from the hands of the enemy. Transform their heart so that they can experience healing while on earth. Transform their heart so that they can experience deliverance. Because here's the thing, you pray for God to save your marriage, but if you pray for God to save your marriage and you don't pray for God to save your husband or save your wife, you will find yourself in that same predicament that you were in before. You pray and ask God to send your husband home, to send your wife home. But I ask the question, if you were to send your spouse home in the state that they're currently in, the mindset they're in, the emotional state that they're in, the spiritual state that they're in, how would that serve you and your children? And you tell me, would that make your marriage better? So we have to understand when we're praying, if you've been a part of my Wives in Warfare Challenge, if you're a part of my Wives Who Win community, you will understand when I'm talking about winning, I'm talking about warfaring. I'm talking about operating in integrity. I'm talking about having a non-negotiable decision that you will never, ever give up on your marriage. You will never, ever give up on your marriage. It's the difference if someone is giving up. You will never give up. And you not giving up does not mean that you're begging someone to stay or you're begging God to allow that person to stay. This is all in the spiritual. This is the natural, yes, because anything spiritual has a natural application to it, but this is all in the spiritual. And we have to understand that in your fighting and you're not giving up, you're doing that through the spiritual realm. You can't operate in the natural when it's concerning spiritual things. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up at, because they're trying to implement natural practices into something that is spiritual. Now, there will be some natural benefits and some natural things that you need to implore. However, you have to understand what the spiritual realm is asking and requiring of you and be able and willing to do that. Okay, so you come to grips that my husband, my wife, is not capable of loving me, of honoring me in the way that I desire and that God desires right now. So how do I stay well in this type of position? How do I not lose my mind? Because what I can tell you is that if these things are happening and you're being emotionally abused, not only will this affect your state of mind, right? This will affect your decision making. This will affect the way you show up at work. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, how you show up at work, if you even show up. If you even show up, how you show up at work, how you show up in church. You know, you're trying to mask the pain. You're trying to mask the hurt. You never expected in a million years that the person you decided to give your life to would betray you in the way that they're portraying you. You never realized or even could imagine in a million years the person that you stood at the altar with, the person that you stood in front of the judge with, or the whoever was ordained to marry you. You never ever thought in a million years that you would be at this place at this time of your life. This was not the ideal for you. This was not the dream for you. I honestly believe that people do not get married to get divorced. I honestly believe that people don't go into marriage with the intention to hurt one another, with the intention to abuse one another, with the intention to attack one another. However, I do understand that when you do not heal, let me slow down because my husband always like, slow down, slow down. I get excited about this because this is my passion. This is what God has called me to do. I understand that when you don't get healed, when you go into a marriage broken, when you go into a marriage dealing with all of your hurt and all of your pain, and those things have never ever been addressed, at some point those things will surface. If you don't work on your emotional intelligence, your spiritual intelligence, your relationship with God, at some point it will become so hard for you to function in that space because you're wrestling with Him. You're wrestling within, and so many men and women alike are wrestling within. So that's why he's out there and he's cheating, and he's out there and doing things he has no business doing, and he's telling you he doesn't want to be with you, and he's over it, and he's done. You know, something on the inside of him is something that he's wrestling with. And what I do want to share with you, because I was talking to one of my clients on yesterday, and she said that, you know, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with him. I'm trying to figure out why doesn't he want to be with me anymore. I know I can help him, and I know something is wrong, and I just don't understand. And I said, sweetheart, like my husband like to say, sweetheart, listen, it is not your responsibility to understand what's wrong with him. It is not your responsibility to try to figure out what's wrong with him. It is not your responsibility to fix him. You are not his mother, and you're not his therapist. He has to come to the realization that he needs help. It is your responsibility to pray for him. It is your responsibility to share with him how much you love him and care for him and how much you want the marriage. That is, yeah, you can share that with him. However, there's a thin line in you sharing that with him and you still trying to figure it out and trying to force him to be somewhere he does not want to be. And when I told him, I told her, at that point is you're nagging and you're being irritable, and that will draw him away from you. If he feels like you're forcing yourself on him, you're forcing the relationship, it will draw you away from him. And she said, well, should I not fight for my marriage anymore? I said, no. And hear me when I said that. And I said, I'm not saying don't fight for your marriage, but I'm saying don't fight in the way that you think you're fighting. Fighting is not you nagging him, you trying to figure out what's going on with him, you asking him every day what's wrong and how can you help. That's not fighting. That's the wrong definition of fighting. I say you're fighting for your marriage through prayer. And I say, and you're fighting for your marriage, you're asking God to heal him. You're asking God to expose whatever he's dealing with to him, because he needs to realize what's going on with him, whether the marriage makes it or not. At this point, we're dealing with a soul. At this point, we're dealing with someone that's lost, someone that's hurting, someone that's in pain, someone that doesn't even know what's going on with himself or herself. So at some point, you have to come to the realization like this person needs a savior and I'm not their savior. And you have to be okay with that. And we dug deep and we found out some other things and the reason why she is feeling the way that she's feeling. And it has a lot to do with resentment, and it has a lot to do with a lot of things. And that's what we have to understand. We have to get to the surface of the issue. You know, many people have been married for years and decades, and many wives I know, because I've spoken with several, feel like, you know, I've allowed him to, you know, have his career and have his life and do all these things. I was a stay-at-home mom, or, you know, I really just supported him throughout the years. I had his children, and now he's telling me that in so many words, that I'm worthless. Now he's telling me that he doesn't want to be with me. Now he's telling me that the marriage is over when I spent my time sacrificing, right? I can imagine how that would make anyone feel. So at some point, you have to say to yourself that you forgive. I forgive you for making me feel this way. I forgive myself for allowing myself to feel this way. I forgive myself for not paying attention to the clues and the little things that were happening all this time. And I just kind of brushed over it. And now I'm here and I'm feeling underaccomplished. I'm feeling undeveloped. I'm feeling, you know, unsuccessful, or whatever it is that you're feeling. And you have to forgive everyone that you feel has had a part to play in where you are right now, and then move on. And when I say move on, I'm not talking about physically move on, but you have to move on and saving yourself first, because your life is on the line. Your future is on the line. I had another client was sharing with me how, you know, where she is right now in her marriage, she's overeating. So now how she's coping is overeating. And this is a woman of prayer. This is a woman of fasting. This is a minister. This is a prophetess. She's a mighty woman of God. Mighty woman of God. But this thing is taking her out. Slowly, a slow death. Just like any illness or sickness that slowly kills. It's a slow death. So if you're going to stay, you have to stay well. And I did a teaching on the core, building your core. If you're interested in that, I'll give you some more information on that. But I did a teaching talking about building your core. And if you're staying in that type of environment, you have to build your core, because staying in that type of environment it's like being in a house with a gas leak with no protective gear. And everybody knows what happens if you're in an environment, in a home with a gas leak, with no protective gear, with no way out. What happens? You eventually what? Die. And what's going to happen to a lot of people that are in that scenario and cannot cope in that scenario? They're going to figuratively die. And many of you can attest to this. And even now, you know, you may have been going through this for some time now, and you may now look like the crazy wife. Everybody's calling you crazy because of how you're reacting and responding. Am I right about it? I recall when I was in that situation, the exact situation where some of you are right now, and my emotions had got the best of me. I couldn't control. I had no idea what emotional intelligence was. If I did, I probably wouldn't have done it anyway, because I was such a young wife back then. I was 19 years old. And there were several times where I would just act out. I would just lash out. And he told everybody that I was crazy. And that's what happens, because women, we are more emotional than men. That's just how God made us. It is what it is. And a lot of times we lead with our emotions. So I was leading with my emotions. Every conversation ended up me crying, me being dramatic, me yelling, me screaming, me acting crazy. And he was right there acting crazy with me. But when we got outside of the home, he looked like the normal, insane one, and I still was looking crazy. I remember just clear it was this time where it was a situation with the courts, and I was praying for the person. I was praying that God showed him favor and all of that stuff, and I was speaking in tongues. I was just walking, you know, up and down the hallway, just speaking in tongues and really praying for God to move on his behalf, because he had gotten himself in a situation. So his attorney asked, "Is she coherent?" And they were like, "She's crazy." And here I am being abused all the way around, all the abuse you can think of. And I'm still praying for God to move on his behalf. And I look like the crazy person. And some of you are in that place right now. People are looking at you like you're crazy. People say you sound crazy. because your emotions have gotten the best of you, and mentally you're not where you need to be because you're so focused and so engulfed to what's going on. You cannot focus on anything else. So my plea to you this morning, I want to give you a few things to do. I'm going to give you 6 things to do this morning. Somebody say 6 things. 6 things. 6 things to do this morning to help you if you're in that position to stay well. This is going to be tough and it's going to be a challenge. However, you can do it if this is your assignment and this is what God is telling you to do. Number 1, make sure you have a safety plan. Make sure you have a safety plan. Develop a safety plan before you have a difficult discussion with your spouse, because at some point, if you have not already, you need to have a conversation with your spouse. However, you want to make sure that you have a safety plan. And again, I talk about your core in another teaching I've done. So in this, you want to make sure that you're not easily intimidated as you once were. And this is not you humiliating him or you retaliating, and you're not pretending and you're not trying harder to do everything that he wants. This is not what this is about. This is you preparing yourself to have a conversation. And the way that you're doing that is you're going to document. You're going to document. And I talked about this, you guys. Here I have some cards. I brought this down with me. And you want to document the incidents that have been happening. You want to document things that, he or she have been doing. Okay, so that may look like, you know what, Johnny, you know what, the other day when I had asked you a question, it seemed like you attacked me. You're writing this on the card. The other day I asked my husband or my wife a question. I felt attacked because they called me stupid, ignorant, or whatever. That's one incident. Whatever, number 2 incident. The other day when I asked for some money, my spouse told me no, and they told me to figure it out on my own. Whatever that may look like. The other day when our water heater went out, he told me that I needed to pay for it on my own, and he was not giving me any money. He or she often withhold sex from me and told me that I need to act better or behave better in order to get sex. Whatever those things are, write it down, document it. Write it down when he or she berates you, the words that they use to demean you, the actions they do to scare you, or specifically what they have done to left you feeling abandoned. Whatever they have done to make you feel abandoned, to make you feel rejected, to make you feel worthless, helpless, hopeless, write it down. This is not writing it down so you can feel bad about yourself. This is writing it down so you can come to the truth of the reality of what you're currently in. What's currently going on in my life? Because I may not have realized it. I had some woman that took a quiz, and the quiz basically was able to demonstrate. Yes, that's number 2. So number 2 is document. Number 1 is make sure you have developed a safety plan. And this is part of the safety plan. And number 2 is document. So part of the safety plan is documenting it. What was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying. If y'all remember, let me know. So make sure you're just documenting. Oh, this is not to make you feel bad or for you to see what you're doing wrong. That's not what this is about. This is about facing the reality of what's happening. You can't conquer what you don't confront. And you can't keep pretending that something isn't wrong, because it is. And we're going to talk about how do you confront him or her, right? And the questions that you need to ask. So number 3, ask for support. Ask for support. I've often encouraged this. And if you're in a scenario where your spouse is telling you you can't hang out with your friends, you can't hang out with people, they're not supporting you by helping you with the children when it's time for you to go, spend a few hours with your friends or family, things of that nature. That's an emotionally destructive marriage, because they're trying to control you. However, what I say to you is find friends. If you have children, find friends with children, and you take your children with you, and you go out to Starbucks. You guys go grocery shopping together. You go out to the park, whatever that is, but ask for support. That includes having a group of godly and wise people who will pray for you, support you, and encourage you, and that will be there with you and for you. Because if you know you cannot depend on your spouse to be there for you, you have to form a circle of women or men that will be able to support you in that way. You cannot look to your spouse to be everything that you need, because the last time I checked, God said, I am all that you need, not man. not woman. He is. However, he will put people in your life, and he will allow you to have those unilateral relationships with other people, because we are relational beings, so that you can have the support that you need. Number 4, consult a lawyer. Okay, Terrell, why are you talking about consult a lawyer, an attorney? I'm not trying to get divorced. I may need to remove myself from the situation temporarily because it is becoming dangerous. It is becoming destructive. I'm afraid for my mental health. I may not be afraid for my life. Oh, come on, somebody. But I am afraid for my mental health. I am afraid for my emotional state, because I see myself breaking down. I am not who I once was. I look in the mirror and I am becoming unrecognizable. When people see me, I don't look the same. I don't feel the same. I don't talk the same. I don't walk the same. So this is beginning to affect my mental and my emotional health, and also my spiritual health, because I don't spend time with God like I used to, because I'm in a way, I feel like it's all his fault. In a way, I feel like he can correct this. In a way, I feel like he can touch my husband, and he can touch my wife, and all this will be better. But I feel like he is ignoring me, and my life is just not what it once was, and I don't even recognize who this person is anymore. Consult an attorney. And the reason why, you don't need to retain attorney. This is not retaining any type of legal authority, but especially if you have kids, you need to be able to, and if you don't have kids, because the spouse can sue you for abandonment, abandoning the marriage, or kidnapping the children. There's so many things that you can do, and legally nobody has legal guardian or custody over the children when you're married. So Johnny can pick up and leave, you can pick up and leave. However, money is power. And if you're dealing with someone, I had this happen to one of my clients, if you're dealing with someone that has money and has influence and has power, it's just what it is. A lot of times that person in court will win. That person in court will win. So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. When you call, you're asking how much it is for a 30 or 60-minute consultation. And go prepared with all of your questions written down so you don't waste any time. Learn what the legal rights are, as well as what legal liabilities if you make certain choices, you need to know. For example, let's say that you do have kids, right? And your spouse is having an affair or had several affairs, and you left and you went to your parents in another state. Your spouse can come home and frantically say, oh, everybody moved out and that person abandoned, my wife or the husband can say, my wife, or the wife can say, my husband abandoned me. So you can get in legal trouble for moving the kids out of state without their permission or knowledge. So you have to be mindful with that. Now, you going on a vacation and extended that vacation may be a different story, because he knew you were going, hey, I'm going to visit my family. And, oh, by the way, when you get there, you may just decide to stay for a little while until things get better within the marriage. But in all things, wisdom. And at the end of the day, this is going to affect your life and affect the life of your children. So make sure you're doing things wisely. So consult an attorney, let them know what's going on. Let them know, what you're deciding or thinking about doing. Hey, I want my marriage, but I understand that we are really in a really bad place. I may need to separate myself. What is the best way to do that without getting in legal trouble? Number 5, get your own bank account and a credit card. Get your own money. I see this all too often. All too often, you're in a marriage and one person is controlling the money and the other person has no idea what's going on with the money. When they ask, they are, attacked in so many words, or, thrown off to where they don't want to ask because it's always an argument. Get your own money. That means if you need to get a job and apply for a credit card. I don't care if it's just $500. Apply for a credit card and have that credit card as a safety measure and as an emergency card, and if you need it. You should build your own credit and make sure that you're in a place where if you needed to leave, you have at least enough money to take a train ride, a bus ride, a plane ride home, or wherever you're going at. Okay? And when you take this type of step, you're declaring that you will not allow your spouse to have control over you or the finances, especially if they're not being fair, F-A-I-R, and sharing with you what's going on with the finances. Because it's okay if one person kind of handles, the bills and they make responsibilities like that, or they're responsible like that. But it's not okay when they're not sharing with you what's going on or how they're spending the money. And, every time it looks, you don't have any money. Both of you guys don't have any money. That's not okay. That's not okay. And then the last one, but not least, is prepare to talk about the destructive behaviors you want stopped and what consequences you will enforce if they refuse. Get prepared to talk about it. And that's where the courage comes in at. What are the specific things that your spouse does that you no longer tolerate? Again, get your note card out and you write that down for you. What is so damaging to your marriage and your children, or to you as a person, that you are now going to put your foot down? Enough is enough. That's what that means. You can no longer allow them to control you, because marriage is not about control. It's about submission. And submission is all about servanthood. We're serving one another. So it's not you're dominating me or I'm dominating you, but we're in this together and we're serving one another. So if you're in that position and you're staying well, all of what we just talked about just now is what you need to do. All of what we just talked about from the beginning of this conversation to now. So tomorrow we're going to be on. Tomorrow's going to be day 5. Super excited. I think I'm going to be on. I know church. Some people go to church around 11. So 8 o'clock may be good for tomorrow as well. And tomorrow, let's see what we're talking about tomorrow, because I wrote them all down. I just have to find them. Tomorrow. Somebody say tomorrow. Somebody say day 5. Somebody say day 5. Oh, tomorrow we're going to be talking about mutuality. Oh, I'm excited about that conversation. Mutuality. Marriage is about 3 things, you guys. If you're going to win in your marriage, if you're going to thrive in your marriage, if you're going to heal an emotionally destructive marriage, you need 3 things: mutuality, reciprocity, and freedom. So in the next few days, that's what we'll talk about. Day 5, mutuality. Day 6, reciprocity. And day 7, your freedom. Freedom. So I pray that this has blessed you all. I'll be on tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come ready to take notes. Come ready with an open mind and an open heart, so that you can make the decision that God is leading you to make for you and your children. God loves marriages, and God loves you just the same. He loves you just the same. And if anyone is in a position where they're being mistreated, He does not like that, and He does not approve of that. Okay? All right, you all. I pray you have a blessed and beautiful Saturday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.